My parents were handing out Christmas gifts to all the grandkids. When it came to my daughter, they said, "Oh, looks like we forgot one," and laughed as they gave her gift to my sister's son, just to be fair. My daughter stayed silent. My parents laughed, When my parents laughed and said, "Oh, looks like we forgot one," while handing my daughter's gift to my sister's son, something in me snapped. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a sharp, cold feeling that hit harder than the winter air outside their door. For a second I just stared at them, trying to understand how two people who always bragged about being fair grandparents could do something that cruel in front of everyone. My daughter, Ava, sat beside me holding the small homemade card she spent 2 evenings working on. She had written their names in silver marker, added stickers she saved from her school project, and even asked me twice if the colors looked grown up enough. And now she sat there empty-handed while the adults laughed like this was some holiday skit. My dad kept grinning, repeating that they were short on gifts and that my nephew would appreciate it more anyway. My mom added that kids forget these things. She said it in that dismissive way she uses whenever she does something she knows is wrong but won't admit. My sister didn't look at me. She didn't look at Ava either. She just adjusted her son's sleeve and told him to say thank you. Everyone else kept drinking, eating, pretending this wasn't happening. Pretending my daughter wasn't the only grandchild without a single gift under her feet. I felt heat rising in my chest, but my voice stayed steady when I told Ava to get her coat. She didn't argue. She didn't ask what we were doing. She just set the card down gently on the edge of the coffee table, like she still hoped someone might open it. The whole time my parents didn't stop us. Not even when we reached the door. My mom only called out something about us being dramatic. My dad joked that the night wasn't over yet. None of them realized the only thing keeping me from saying exactly what I thought was the fact that Ava was listening. Outside, the cold hit us immediately. The driveway was lined with cars, and the Christmas lights flickered along the gutters like nothing inside had gone wrong. I opened the car for Ava and helped her inside. She didn't cry. She just sat quietly, staring at her mittens. What they didn't know, what they never even bothered to ask about, was parked a block away at the corner under the street lamp. A 2022 Lexus. Clean, low mileage, detailed the day before. I bought it as a gift for my parents. Not because they earned it, but because I thought maybe it would help us turn a corner. I thought giving them something meaningful might lead to something soft, something healing. But watching them humiliate my daughter so easily, I realized they never cared about the bridges I kept trying to rebuild. They'd always take what I gave and leave nothing in return. As I started the engine, I made a quiet decision. They would never see that car. Not the keys, not the bow, not the thank you note I'd written and rewritten 3 times. And that was only the beginning of the consequences they'd walked into. They didn't know it yet, but losing that Lexus would be the smallest part of what was coming. The next morning they acted like nothing had happened. I woke up to a text from my mom, a photo of everyone gathered around the breakfast table in their kitchen. Pancakes, bacon, whipped cream stacked like a mountain. She captioned it with something cheerful about family traditions and how she hoped Ava and I were having a relaxing morning. As if my daughter hadn't been the only child sent home without a single gift. As if she hadn't watched her grandparents hand her present to someone else while they laughed. I stared at the photo for a long time. Then I set my phone face down and went to make Ava breakfast, even though I knew she wouldn't be hungry. She came downstairs wearing the matching sweater still, dragging her feet a little. She didn't mention the night before, but when she opened the pantry and saw the wrapping supplies on the counter, she closed it quietly and moved on. Later that morning, I found the handmade card she tossed in the trash, the one she decorated with stickers she'd saved for weeks. That was the moment I decided I wasn't letting it slide. Still, things stayed strangely quiet. No apology. No explanation. No one checking in on Ava. Instead, on the 3rd day, my dad finally texted me something that hinted they knew more than they were saying. He wrote, "Did you leave a car parked up the block on Christmas Eve?" I stared at the message, remembering that cold street lamp glow on the Lexus's hood, the bow I'd put on the dashboard, the little note thanking them for trying. It felt surreal now, like I'd planned it for different people entirely. I wrote back no. Then I blocked him. 3 days passed before they decided to show up at my house. I recognized my mom's coat from the kitchen window before I even pulled into the driveway. She was standing on my porch with 2 overstuffed gift bags. My dad beside her with that strained half smile he puts on when he's trying to manipulate a situation. For a moment I considered driving away, leaving them standing there in the cold. But Ava was home and I didn't want them knocking until she answered. When I got out of the car, they lit up like this was some warm family reunion. My mom said they'd been thinking a lot about Christmas and wanted to fix what she called a silly misunderstanding. My dad added that they picked out some things for Ava and hoped she'd accept them. He handed me the first bag. Inside were items so thoughtless it almost felt intentional. A doll clearly meant for a toddler even though Ava is 11. A puzzle missing one corner of its box. a set of glitter pens she's allergic to, and a fuzzy sweatshirt in a color she avoids because kids at school once teased her for it. Then my mom gave me the second bag. Candy Ava can't eat. A cheap plastic bracelet set. A notebook that still had the clearance sticker on the back. I held both bags for a moment. Then I handed them right back. They didn't like that. My mom's smile tightened. My dad started insisting they were trying to make things right and that I was overreacting. He said Ava didn't look upset at the party anyway. As if a child staying quiet is proof that nothing is wrong. As if silence means forgiveness. Ava stood in the hallway behind me. She didn't say anything, but she didn't need to. She heard every word. So I told them the truth calmly. This wasn't about a gift. It was about the kind of people they revealed themselves to be in front of my daughter. They tried to interrupt, but I kept going. I told them how the Lexus had been sitting under that street lamp on Christmas Eve. Cleaned, ready, wrapped with a ribbon on the dashboard. How I'd been planning to give it to them as a final attempt to rebuild something that had been cracking for years. I didn't describe the note I wrote, the one thanking them for trying, the one that now sat in my kitchen drawer like a bad joke. My parents went silent. My dad's expression softened into something confused, almost panicked. My mom blinked like she couldn't tell if I was serious. I told them they'd lost the chance to receive something big and meaningful, not because of one mistake, but because of a pattern they pretended didn't exist. Then I told them they needed to leave. My mom tried to argue, but I stepped inside and closed the door. They stood there for a few moments, talking loudly on purpose so I'd hear. Something about how they had no idea what was wrong with me. Something about how ungrateful I was. I didn't open the door again. When they finally left, I saw Ava standing by the staircase. She asked if they were coming back. I told her not today, but deep down I had a feeling they were just getting started. And I knew the next part wouldn't be simple. They came back the following Saturday. No call, no heads up. Just appeared on my front porch like they were showing up for brunch. My dad had this ridiculous stuffed unicorn under one arm. Bright purple, glittery, huge. And my mom was carrying a tray of cookies and a pink gift bag that looked like it had been thrown together on the way over. I watched them from the kitchen window. They looked like door-to-door salespeople trying to force their way back into someone's life. I didn't move at first. I wanted to see how long they'd wait. They stood there for about a minute, then rang the bell. Twice. Then came the knock, light at first, then louder. My mom tried peeking through the side window like maybe we were just upstairs and didn't hear. Ava was in her room. She didn't even ask who it was. I think she already knew. Eventually, I opened the door and stepped outside. I didn't invite them in. My dad greeted me like we were picking up from a paused conversation, not a silent war. My mom smiled like nothing awkward had ever happened between us. He said they'd been thinking about Christmas. That maybe things had gotten a little off. That they wanted to make things right with Ava. My mom jumped in saying they'd brought some things she'd just love. Cookies, books, fun little girl things. She held up the pink gift bag like it was some kind of peace treaty. I didn't touch it. She kept talking, listing off the contents. There was a book she said was all the rage with girls her age, which I knew Ava read 2 years ago. A hoodie in a size too small. Nail polish in neon colors she never wears. And then there were the cookies. Homemade, apparently filled with walnuts. Ava's severely allergic to walnuts. They've known that since she was 5. They weren't gifts. They were guesses. Lazy ones. I asked if they remembered what happened on Christmas Eve. My dad said yeah, of course, and that they were just trying to keep things even among all the grandkids. That it hadn't been personal. That Ava probably didn't even remember it. He looked right at me and said, "Kids bounce back. You're the one holding on to this." My mom added that we were making a mountain out of a molehill. That all they wanted was to see their granddaughter smile. That this was supposed to be a good thing. I didn't even get a chance to respond before the front door creaked open behind me. Ava stood there silent. She looked at the unicorn first, then the gift bag. Then my parents. Then me. No words. Just that look. The kind that lets you know a kid has figured out more than you ever wanted them to. Then she quietly stepped back inside and shut the door. That silence hit harder than anything I could have said. I turned back to my parents and told them what they brought didn't matter. That they could wrap all the noise in glitter and bows, but it wouldn't fix the way they made Ava feel that night. I said I wasn't doing this performance anymore. Where they mess up, throw junk at the problem and expect forgiveness without understanding. They tried to speak, but I cut them off. I told them I'd given them the chance to be better. I told them about the car again, how it had been real, how the key was in my pocket that night, how I'd planned something that took months of effort because I still thought maybe, deep down, they'd want to be the kind of people I could look up to again. But they threw that away the second they handed Ava's gift to someone else like it was nothing. Then I told them I wanted them gone. My mom looked stunned. My dad's mouth opened like he was going to argue, but nothing came out. They stood there for a beat. Then my dad placed the unicorn gently on the porch like it was some kind of peace offering. They walked back to their car without another word. I didn't bring the unicorn inside. Later that night, I found out what they'd been doing behind the scenes. My cousin sent me screenshots, messages from my mom to extended family, framing me as unstable, saying I was teaching Ava to hold grudges, that I'd always been difficult, and that they were heartbroken over how cruelly I'd treated them after they tried to make things right. They'd rewritten the entire story in less than a week, turned themselves into the victims, made me the villain. That's when it really clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was how they operated. Always had. And next time I saw them, I was going to say exactly what I'd been holding in for years. Not outside. Not on my porch. In their house. I didn't plan it ahead of time. I just woke up one morning, looked at the clock, and decided I was done waiting for apologies that were never going to come. I told Ava I had an errand to run and left before she could ask questions. She didn't need to be part of this. Not yet. Not unless they forced it. The drive to my parents' house was quiet. Streets still slushy from the last storm, trees stripped bare, everything gray and heavy. Like the season had started to rot. The closer I got, the tighter my hands gripped the wheel. Their neighborhood hadn't changed. Same lawn ornaments, same neighbors, same wreath on their door they've reused for 10 years. But something about the house felt smaller than I remembered. I parked across the street. Sat for a moment. Thought about turning around. Then I didn't. I still had a spare key. They never asked for it back. When I walked in, I was hit with that same old smell. Vanilla candles, something fried, and the faint scent of dust from a home where nothing new ever happens. My footsteps echoed louder than I expected. No one had decorated since Christmas. The tree was still up, but the lights weren't plugged in. Ornaments drooping like they'd lost the will to sparkle. My mom came out of the kitchen holding her phone and a half-eaten piece of toast. She jumped slightly when she saw me, like maybe she thought I was a ghost. My dad appeared behind her, already talking, already trying to steer the moment before I could speak. He asked if I wanted coffee. I told them both to sit. My mom hesitated like she was waiting to be asked nicely. My dad chuckled like this was all some big misunderstanding. But eventually they sat. Side by side on that same beige couch where they used to line up our Christmas gifts. Mine always smaller, always last. I stood. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rehearse anything. I just told them the truth. I told them Ava remembered everything. That she didn't say anything on Christmas because she was too stunned, too polite. But she remembered. She told me later that night she felt invisible. That she couldn't understand why everyone else got something and she didn't, even after she'd made them a card. I pulled it from my coat pocket. The same card she'd thrown away. I dug it out of the trash after she went to bed. She had used silver marker and tiny heart stickers. Written their names out carefully in cursive. Inside it said, "Thank you for always making me feel like I belong." My mom's face twitched like she wanted to cry but was too proud. My dad just looked away. I told them I'd been holding on for Ava's sake, trying to give them chance after chance to be something better than what they'd always been. But that Christmas was it. Not because they forgot a gift, but because of how quick they were to laugh while handing it to someone else. They hadn't just forgotten Ava. They'd chosen to leave her out. My dad started to speak, but I cut him off. I told them about the Lexus. How it had been parked 1 block away with a ribbon and a note that said thank you for still trying. How I'd stood there holding the keys in my pocket as I watched them humiliate my daughter in front of the entire family. And how I walked out that night knowing they'd never see that car, or any version of me that begged for their love ever again. My mom whispered something, barely audible, something like, "But we didn't mean it like that." I said it doesn't matter how they meant it. It only matters how they keep doing it. That's when I heard the door creak open behind me. Ava. She was supposed to be at home. I turned and there she was, jacket zipped, hair tied back, her face completely calm. I stared at her, confused. She looked at me, then at them. She said, "I used to find my iPhone. I wanted to see what you were going to say." I didn't even know she knew how to do that. She walked into the room slowly, like she'd been preparing herself for this moment. My mom stood up and smiled, fake and wide, arms open. She said something like, "Oh, sweetheart, we missed you so much." Ava stopped a few feet away. Didn't return the smile. She looked at them and said, "I don't want anything from you. You didn't forget me. You just didn't care." Then she turned to me and said, "Can we go now?" That was it. That's all she needed to say. We walked out. Together. No goodbyes. No second chances. As we pulled out of the driveway, I saw my dad step out onto the porch, hands on his hips like he couldn't believe what just happened. My mom didn't follow. They didn't try to stop us. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. The next day my cousin called. She asked if I'd really stormed into the house and told off my parents in front of Ava. She said my mom had been calling family members crying, saying I was unstable, that I was poisoning Ava against them, that I'd embarrassed them in their own home. Apparently they were playing the victim now. spreading their version of the story. And I realized something. They weren't just bad at being grandparents. They were professionals at being the victims. It didn't happen all at once. Cutting them off wasn't a clean slice. It was slow, jagged, and painful in ways I hadn't prepared for. After the group chat screenshots, after the messages from family I barely talked to, after hearing for the third time that my mom had called me unstable, I sat in my car outside Ava's school and realized I had to make a choice. Not for me but for her. Either we let them keep rewriting the story while pretending to love her, or we ended the story altogether. That night I told Ava everything. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told her what they'd been saying, how they were painting her as part of some tantrum I'd supposedly thrown, how they left her name out of the story completely. She didn't cry. She just asked me one question. If I don't have grandparents, does that mean something's wrong with me? That question broke something in me. And it also made the decision very, very simple. The next day I texted my mom and told her I was coming over. She replied instantly, "Of course. We'll make lunch. So glad you're ready to talk." She really believed I was coming to apologize. Maybe even beg. I didn't bring food. I didn't bring Ava. I didn't even bring a coat. I didn't plan on staying long enough to need one. I walked in and the smell hit me, same waxy candles, same overcooked meat in the oven. The TV was on low. A Hallmark movie, probably one they'd already seen 5 times. My dad was wearing slippers he used to joke made him look like a grandpa. That joke didn't land anymore. My mom smiled like she was already forgiving me for something I hadn't said. I dropped the box on the table. Photo albums, a few framed prints of Ava they never hung up, that cardigan my mom lent me years ago and never asked for back. There was something final about returning it. They both looked confused, then cautious. I told them plainly, this was it. We weren't coming back. Not for Easter. Not for birthdays. Not for the kind of holidays where the family gathers and pretends things are fine until someone cries in the bathroom and someone else drinks too much wine. I told them they could stop texting. Stop calling. Stop sending holiday cards addressed only to me with Ava's name scribbled in the margin like an afterthought. My mom started shaking her head. Said, "You're overreacting. This is just a phase. You're letting your emotions raise your child." My dad said, "You think you're protecting her? You're teaching her how to run away from people who love her." I said, "No. I'm teaching her not to beg for love." They didn't get it. They never would. My mom cried. My dad got angry. He stood up and started pacing, said something about how they gave up so much for me, how they paid for my braces, how they never went on vacations because kids came first. I looked at both of them and said, "This isn't about money. This is about how you made her feel invisible. And now you're invisible to us." I picked up my car keys. My mom asked if this was really the kind of mother I wanted to be, one who cuts off her own parents. And I said yes. That's what it takes. As I opened the door, my dad said, "Don't come crawling back when she turns on you too." I stopped for a second. Let that sink in. They thought Ava would turn on me the way I was turning on them. But they never understood. Ava and I aren't the same story repeating. She's the first chapter of something new. I walked out. They didn't follow. Later that night, Ava and I made dinner together. She told me she wanted to skip Easter this year, maybe just do a movie marathon at home. I asked her if she was sure and she said, "I don't want to sit with people who pretend to like me." She didn't say it with anger. She said it like someone who'd finally found the words for something she'd been feeling for years. After she went to bed, I cried in the laundry room. Not out of regret, but because I knew this was forever now. And even when you're absolutely certain, forever still hurts. I haven't heard from my parents since. But I see them. In messages they send to relatives. In posts about missing their granddaughter. In whispers passed back to me through people who still believe blood is reason enough to keep showing up. But I've stopped showing up. And that's the difference. They expect me to circle back eventually. But they don't know. I'm not circling. I'm walking away in a straight line. It's been months. They never called again. Never texted. No apology, no questions, no unexpected knock on the door. They just went quiet, which in a way told me everything. Silence wasn't an accident. It was the loudest confirmation they could give that they were only ever interested in control, not connection. But what surprised me most wasn't their silence. It was how empty it still felt. I thought cutting them off would bring some kind of clean peace. Like closing a book on a bad chapter. But it wasn't like that. It lingered. Got quieter, sure. But not lighter. Ava stopped asking about them after Easter passed. She didn't mention them on her birthday either. He got cards from my coworkers, friends, even our neighbor. Nothing from my parents. Not even the usual last-minute gift that showed up 2 days late with the wrong name on the tag. And yet, she didn't bring it up. Not once. Which should have been a relief. But it wasn't. One night in late spring we were watching a movie together. One of those Disney ones where the grandma is the wise, warm center of everything. Ava got really quiet halfway through. She didn't cry, she didn't ask questions. But after the credits rolled, she looked at me and said, "Do you think they miss me?" I wanted to lie. I wanted to say, of course they do. Every day. But the truth sat heavy on my chest. I told her, "I think they don't know how to miss people properly. And that's not your fault." She nodded like she understood. But I know that kind of hurt doesn't go away just because you understand it. Since then, she's asked fewer questions. But she watches more carefully. She notices which adults follow through. Who calls when they say they will. Who shows up to her soccer games even if it's raining. She started making a list in her notebook. People she trusts. She's never said it's a list, but I've seen it. Names, dates. Smiley faces or X's. My parents aren't on the list. Neither is my sister. The family doesn't bring them up to me anymore. I think at some point they realized I wasn't interested in their version of events. One aunt tried to mediate, told me I was being too firm. Said maybe I should just move on for the sake of family unity. I asked her, what exactly am I supposed to move on from? The fact that they hurt my daughter or the fact that they laughed when they did it? She didn't have an answer. So she stopped asking. The thing about boundaries is, people assume they're just walls. But they're not. They're doors with locks, and only the right people get keys. I think about the car sometimes. The Lexus. I ended up selling it. Used the money to pay down some debt and take Ava on a trip to the mountains. First time she saw snow falling from a ski lift, she looked at me and said, "This is better than Christmas." And she meant it. That's when I realized something. You don't always get justice. Some people never admit they were wrong. Some relationships end without a neat ending. Without a final fight. Sometimes they just dissolve like salt in hot water. But if you're lucky, if you're really lucky, you get to start over with the people who matter. Ava still struggles with it sometimes. And so do I. But she knows without question that I'll never hand her heart to someone else and laugh when it breaks. And that's worth more than any apology we never got. That's the ending. And the beginning.